To be here this morning to introduce Mayor Dan Ridenour for a State of the City report to us all. I've worked with Dan for several years now on Next Muncie as we strive to lift up and advocate for various projects within the city. The mayor's been a great partner with that leadership group. Mayor Dan is a proud Muncie resident with a history of dedication to the city. He has been a member of Rotary International for years, where he has served on the board, and the mayor previously served for 4 years on the Muncie City Council. He's a devoted husband of Sherry. He has a history of dedication to the city. He has 4 children and 4 grandchildren. Mayor Dan has written and published 3 books on personal financial wisdom, drawing on his decades of experience as a banker. Dan believes in perseverance and consistency, which he has demonstrated by twice competing in Muncie's 70.3-mile Ironman triathlon. A committed lifelong learner, Dan sets aside time every morning for reading, studying, and personal growth. Mayor Dan Ridenour, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Judd. Thank you all for being here. I think I'm going to start by saying that, I also want to thank God for the many blessings that He provides to me and to our city. And I always want to thank my wife, Sherry, who, if you've ever been a spouse of an elected official, it's a challenge. And so, thank you. Thank you. So can everybody hear me in the back? I'm going to try and use my, okay. We want to make sure that this goes the way it should. So let's see here. I'm not sure where I don't know where it is. There it is. Okay. And if you don't mind. So we're here for the State of the City, and it's good news. It's not all perfect, but it's good news. So let me just kind of move this forward. Here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about where we started. We're going to go back and just look at where we started on January 1st of 2020, where we are as of December 31st of 2022, and now that we're in our 4th year, where we're going and where we'd love to see this city go. So those are the 3 main things that we're going to talk about today. And I should be able to finish in about 4 hours. But no, the very first State of the City, I did run a little long, and when I saw a couple people having to get up and leave and going like this, I realized. But I had a lot to say then. I've narrowed that down with the help of primarily Shireen, Dustin, Michelle, and my wife. We've narrowed it down. We should have pretty good timing for you so you can all get to your jobs. But when that very first State of the City back in 2020, I used a quote from C.S. Lewis. I don't know if you remember this or not, but it was what I started with. You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. We are changing the ending for the city of Muncie. And we'll go through it. But before we do that, I want to go back and just remind people where we were on January 1st of 2020 when I took office as your mayor, and we started we installed all of the team involved. So first of all, there were a lot of financial challenges. We came in, we discovered there were 18 negative accounts for $3.3 million. The biggest ones, or the most concerning, was the checking account was overdrawn $250,000 in the mayor's edit funds. And the biggest one was the checking account was overdrawn $1.9 million in the roads and streets account. Now, I will admit I did reach out to the state and I said, can we pay this back over time? And they said no. So you know how much paving we did in 2020 out of the street department? 0. But we paid it back, and we started fresh. So we actually lost a year So as you're driving, I know the streets are not ideal, but there's already been some improvement, and there are a lot of plans in place that will continue us moving forward. And then we were one step from a junk bond rating. For those bankers in the room, we were BBB minus. That's okay, BBB minus. It just meant we were paying a higher rate, and my credit score background kind of indicates I have a little knowledge in that. But that's where we were. So financially, we had some challenges, as you can see. But that wasn't our only challenge that we discovered on January 1st. There were many other things that we had to address. First of all, talked to my new police chief, and we had 86 officers on the street, which is about 20 below where we should have been. We were having difficulty getting people to apply. Quite frankly, the department was embroiled in a lot of controversy and challenges, we'll call it. I don't know how many of you had toured a fire station. Has anybody toured a fire station in the last 5 years? Very few. I would not encourage you to do it. It's embarrassing. Deplorable conditions. But we're going to be addressing some of that. We would have done it last year, but we had some challenges that we had to overcome, and I'll get into those in a little bit. But the fire stations are in deplorable condition. Equipment needed to be upgraded. There were a lot of things left out of our daily operations that weren't happening. So we have financial, we have public safety, but there was another area where we have some challenges, and that's infrastructure, which is roads primarily, but it includes a lot more than just roads, but the infrastructure. So the state has a grading system, and that's what that's the left side wheel talks about. And then on the right side, what we did is we did what is required for us as a city in order to receive the maximum amount of grant matching from the state and federal government. You have to have an outside independent contractor come in and grade your roads. It's a requirement. So we did that. We paid for that. We got that accomplished. And what we found is that 48% of our roads scored 50 or lower. 50 is not good. On top-line cities, they expect that the score should be 75. Our score was 52.8. So we came in, we knew we had three major challenges. We had financial, we had public safety, and we have infrastructure. Those were the main things that we felt like we had to resolve right away. Oh, and then what happened in March of 2020? COVID. So it threw another curveball in there, and we've worked our way through that. But I have done enough turnarounds in my banking career that I knew that we just had to set up a plan. And so we knew in order to come up with solutions, you have to have a plan. So one of the things that we needed to do is we knew we needed to address the accounting issues immediately and make sure that all departments operate within their budgets. And we feel like we've done that. Secondly, we had to come up with ways. We're not yet, and I stress yet, a growing city in population. We've had 1 year of growth. The census estimate 1 year was a growth. But we've not been a growing city, which means our tax base isn't growing, and yet the needs of the community continue to grow. The expenses to operate continue to grow. And so if you don't have a mayor that understands you've got to set up plans and strategies to increase the tax base without increasing the taxes, you're in trouble. And then that's when you have fire stations get in deplorable conditions. That's when you have police that you can't hire police because you're not paying decent salaries. You have those kind of challenges. So that was the second area. And then we know we also wanted to improve the quality of place, the quality of life in our city, and we focused a lot on parks. And that was a big part of the first state of the city was on parks. But we know in order to retain our current residents and have them stay here instead of moving somewhere else, and in order to attract other residents, we knew we had to improve the parks. And not just the parks, but the rest of quality of place. So we've worked diligently on those. So here are some of the things that we've done. When I took over as mayor January 1st of 2020, the MRC, Muncie Redevelopment Commission city's debt was It's a little small for me to read there, so I'm going to read it down here. $58,393,270, approximately. Approximately. That's what it was in 2019. That's December 31st of 2019. As of today, it's $52,832,234. So we've worked on reducing the debt, which simply means that we're continuing to pay roughly the same that we've been paying on a monthly basis. But we're able to use the increased revenues, which I'll talk about, that we've been able to put together. We've been able to use those for other areas. What that boils down to is we've lowered the debt of the city through the MRC by $5.56 million. And we're very proud of that. And I want to thank our controller, Craig Wright, who's sitting up here, and Deputy Controller Matt Wagley. They've been a huge part of that. So thank you so much for your efforts. Thank you so much. In addition to that, I know that in order to take advantage of opportunities that come along, I mean, you've got to have money set back to handle those kind of things. So we looked at what was the cash situation of the city in all of the funds that we have. The city has hundreds of funds. And some have small balances, some as low as $10, others have $1 million balances. But they're all assigned for and required to go for specific areas. But when you add all those up, that first column, the $19,779,000 and change, that was 2015. 2019, when I took over on January 1st of 2020, $19,360,000. So relatively stable, had dropped a little bit, but relatively stable. But as of December 31st, 2022, we're at $22,053,000 and change in all those growths. And quite frankly, we're very proud of that. Because what it allows us to do is it allows us to take advantage of opportunities when other cities don't come through. There are a lot of grants out there. In fact, we had a meeting yesterday with the Planning Commission, the Metropolitan Planning Commission, with the state, and they were talking about if a city doesn't have its match, in other words, if they haven't done proper long-term planning and they don't have the match, the government pulls, the federal government pulls those funds away and gives it to another city. So that's why having cash and having those resources is important. And we've increased the cash $2.69 million in 3 years. We've decreased the debt $5.56 million in 3 years. And yet we've done a lot of activities. Let me show you some of those positive activities. So all of these are housing opportunities that we have put together through the city of Muncie. They either started construction in 2020, completed in 2020, 21, 22, or they're in the process. So the Justice Center apartments, City View 1 and 2. If you don't know what City View is, this is where we've taken lots from the Muncie Redevelopment Commission. We've sold them to a developer for a very reduced price because it's an incentive to get them to do this. And throughout many neighborhoods in our city, they are building single-family homes similar to the one, that's one of the styles that will be built. So there's 55 that will be built in various neighborhoods across our city. Provides our aging housing stock with some new housing stock, provides people with great opportunities to move to other places. Riverbend Flats is one that we did in 2020. That is about ready to start opening up. That's the apartment complex that's at the corner of Memorial and Burlington. They are now looking at probably a May 1st leasing date. Store Estates is very, very near close. In fact, the last time I had a conversation with the city engineer, so this is hearsay. So I had a conversation with the city engineer who had a conversation with the builder, Bunn Corporation, that's doing that development for us. And this is a city paid for, city-done subdivision because I know of the need and the importance. But they said that they thought that they could get that done rather quickly. They were ready to do the asphalt. So we think that that's going to be something that's done here in the near term. White River Lofts began construction in 2020, opened up in 2021. The important thing about that is it's market rents. So these are high-priced units. They're downtown, they're on the river, they're something that we're trying to do in that area. And the important thing about that is 68% of the people that moved into those 55 units are people who already worked in Muncie, but were living in other counties, primarily Hamilton County. And I will admit, it doesn't break my heart to have people move from Hamilton County to Muncie. And then 105 East Washington is a local private developer who is upgrade. It was the old Reliable Bail Bonds building, but they're putting 6 apartments in the upstairs and doing retail on the bottom floor. It's right on Walnut Street. We're looking at expanding Walnut Street north and continuing that all the way up to the high school. That's a big part of the long-term plan. Yes, we're doing things by the high school. We're also going to connect downtown and Walnut Street and eventually as the funds are there. And then Southern Terrace is a brand new housing opportunity that we got, which is another scattered sites. So the important thing is that we've got 270 new units that are either already open or will soon to be open in our city. And that provides opportunities for people who are thinking about leaving to stay here because of the opportunity, or people who are already working here to move here rather than drive an hour each way, and those are important. So 270, we're rather happy about that. And some of these are workforce housing, some of them are affordable housing, which means it's income-based, and some of them are market. And if you go back to 2019, I promised to develop all housing, and that's what we're doing, because we need the high dollar housing to help pay for the other services. We need the lower priced housing for our lower income individuals who need decent housing, and we wanted to help provide newer housing. But we started this in 2020, right off, and I think my real estate and my banking background is what got me really started on the housing right away, because I could see the need. But we started putting together what we were going to build actually before the Together DM plan, and it fits in perfectly. Let me show you something. If you go to this is the comprehensive plan that was put together in 21 and 22. So these are the neighborhoods where these houses are. It's in 10 different neighborhoods across the city. So you've got South Side, you've got South Central, that's East Side, there's Old West End, you've got Store Woods, you've got downtown, you've got Whiteley, you've got Thomas Park, Avondale, and then now Industry has popped up there. You notice this is where all these 270 units are spread throughout the city. And we have other opportunities that are in the works that are not on here, because this is a long-term strategic plan that we're working on. But let me show you, as it comes up, this little fish hook, the Together DM plan, not knowing we had these things in the works, because we didn't announce them until we actually received these housing opportunities. But that little fish hook, or big fish hook, in blue is where the Together DM plan said that we should be focusing our efforts for core stabilization and revitalization. You put new houses in these neighborhoods, and we're putting them in 10 different neighborhoods. Those neighborhoods, that will encourage people to stay and improve their own residences in their neighborhood. That will encourage other investment in the neighborhood. So we see this as a great opportunity, and we're rather proud of it. The other thing that I looked at is the EDIT funds. Now, I don't really want to get into a whole lot of details, but the Economic Development Income Tax is what EDIT stands for. I typically call it the mayor's EDIT funds, because it's something that the mayor has and the mayor can spend for what's supposed to be typically economic development opportunities. But it's approved by the council in the total dollar figure, but then the mayor can spend it based on their own priorities. So what you have here in the orange is what was spent in the year 2019 out of mayor's EDIT funds. So this was before I took office. So you've got $702,000 went for legal fees, $1.8 million and change went toward operating expenses. Well, what we did is we shifted it so that the general fund, which is operating expenses, pays for itself now. And so the mayor's EDIT funds allow me to take those monies and put them to where my priorities are. And those priorities are here. So we still spend about, well, so we'll just start with legal fees. And I know my city attorneys are here, and this doesn't count their, their regular fee, but we only spent $29,302 in 2019 on legal fees out of the edit funds, where previously in 2019 was $700,000. That meant I had $600-some thousand to spend on higher priority items that can help our city grow. The general fund, or not the general fund, the helping operational expenses, we still spend $600,000, but we're doing it on things to help the street department pay for our own paving equipment and our own milling equipment. Again, it's part of a strategic plan to move our city forward. But the areas that I focused on is we increased the spending up to over $100,000 on environmental cleanup. There were $0 in 2019 going to parks, and now it's over $500,000. In 2022 was over $500,000. We spent over $700,000 toward housing. I will tell you in 2023 that's going to be about $1.3 million for housing. And then for nonprofit support, we went from $90,000 to $818,000 supporting our nonprofits. My priorities were the nonprofits, housing, the parks for the quality of place, and improving our our environmental cleanup. Those were my priorities. And so I have switched around how the edit funds are being used, and I think to a much more productive method, which includes now 270 new houses. In addition to that, after 20 months of intense work with IU Health, many of our local nonprofits, with the City Council, and with others who are interested, we've been able to now announce that we finally have a crisis center. This is very important for those citizens. It's a little personal for me. I'm going to try not to lose it here. But like probably most of you, you have family members that are either no longer in your life because they've died of an overdose or some other situation, or you have family members who are recovering, and that never, never, never ends. It's personal. And so we are putting together a collaboration that has a number of people, a number of organizations. 20 months it took to put this all together. We had another location picked, and then in the last few months we had to switch it because we really didn't want to negatively impact what was going on at the hub. We had originally intended to expand the hub, but it was determined that that was going to negatively impact the good work that is happening at the hub. So we have this crisis center, we have the building, we've not put it out for bid yet, it's coming. As soon as it's out for bid, we will get it put together. We expect it to be open in 2023. It'll be run by professionals who will give our citizens a second chance, which is very important, and will provide those citizens with trained professionals. I am not one, but trained professionals, 24 hours a day, that can help them move their lives forward. But I also want to tell you that we're not stopping here. This is the first step in trying to help solve this solution. And I will also tell you in 2026, if I'm fortunate enough to be your mayor, I'll be spending about $1.1 million on this crisis center out of my edit funds. That tells you how important this is. But this is just one step. We submitted yesterday, or maybe it was Tuesday. It was Tuesday, wasn't it, Lynn? On Tuesday, we submitted a grant. Lynn Whitty's back there. Thank you, Lynn, for all you do. And I just want to read, they received our application for a grant. And this is a grant to help sustain the crisis center going forward, but also to add a number of additional services that we know are needed in our community. I'm just going to read to you what this quote was from. This is from Sayward Salazar, who's Vice President of Behavioral Health Indiana. Put it in an email, so I'm hoping that it's acceptable that I list this as I'm saying it as a quote. I'm so impressed with this collaboration. I wish other counties and cities thought like this. Do you know we had 29 letters of support? Our community understands we need to solve this problem, and we're on the first step, then we'll do the second step, then we'll do the third step. We'll get it solved, and we'll provide our citizens with options. We've addressed, I don't want to say it in the past tense because it continues. We know so here's what we did. In 2020, we worked with the police and fire department, and thank you, we've got our police chief, deputy chief, our fire chief and deputy fire chief are over there. We thank you for all you do. Let's give them a round of applause. But in 2020, my first year in office, before it became super popular to raise pay, although they were on me already, believe me, but we increased our public safety employees about 9 to 10% right off the bat. And then I was smart enough, because I am a planner, there was no increase in 22 because we knew that with the COVID, we knew there was going to be some drops in revenues, and that panned out reasonably close. But we did give a big increase. We want to do more, and we would have done more had the solar passed, because that would have provided an additional $500,000 a year to the general fund. But we deal with what we have. And I'm just rather proud that we were able to increase their pay, and we're looking at what we can do in the years going forward. We're in negotiations for this year already, so it's coming forward. We also started EMS. And I don't know if starting something from scratch, how many of you ever started a business from scratch? Yeah. I mean, it's a super difficult situation, and I appreciate our fire department, what they've done. But we've helped pay for, out of the edit funds, I've helped pay for EMS, paramedic training for our fire employees. And if they leave, they pay us back, and we've had that happen. So we're careful with our funds. But we've also completely revamped the training system in the police department. And some of the results are outstanding. And then we've also improved how we get equipment. We have our police officers and our firefighters, for the most part, are in newer vehicles, and we have planned steps, planned funding on how to make those move forward going forward. And again, it comes from my operational and my management background, but we're rather proud of that. In fact, let me show you something about this. Is about the police department. In 2022 alone, they had Muncie Police Department had 46,171 phone calls. The public called that many times. Only 211 times was there responses to resistance. What that means is, I just want to make sure I get this right. That could include physical touching. So it could be taking somebody who was trespassing and they wouldn't move, but you had to move them off the particular site. It could have been trying to get somebody into a car. It could have been holding a weapon toward them. It didn't mean it was discharging. It could have been holding a taser at somebody, but it doesn't mean it was discharged. But that number is so small. And that's a testament to the training that the police department has put in place and the de-escalation work that they've done. That is a very, very, very small number of times where we've had to use physical force in any way, shape, or form. And I think it indicates that our department is moving forward from some very embarrassing times in years past. And so. Now, some people have seen this, some have not. This one's done. How many of you recognize this as being the fire station on Tillotson? Well, if you raised your hand, you're wrong. This is what it will look like. This is done. And we're still working. We're going to put in 2 brand new state-of-the-art fire stations. We had originally intended to do 3, but the solar didn't get passed, so we had to cut back. So we're only doing 2, but the other station is still under some minor changes, and that will be on MLK so at McCullough Park. So Station 6 and Station 5 will be brand new, state-of-the-art facilities that are safe for our firefighters, where you separate the fire equipment from the living quarters. And I don't really want to go into all the details, but it was just embarrassing to tour some of these facilities to understand what our public safety employees were working in. There might be 3 urinals, but 1 worked. There was no privacy. Cabinets where they're keeping their clothing falling apart. We're fixing that. We're working on that. And I think in addition to these 2 new fire stations, we're also putting roofs on 2 other stations. And we've got a long-term plan, but those were the 2 that we felt had the most need, and that's where we're going. So we're proud of that. Beech Grove Cemetery. Troy is here somewhere, right? There he is, Troy. It has been incredible, the turnaround that has happened at Beech Grove Cemetery. And Troy has been a master at, and this is a council-only board, but it comes through the city. So the funding, the budget, all of that ends up through the city. But Troy has been a masterful person working with other departments. So he's collaborated with the Public Works Department, with Muncie Sanitary District, and if you haven't noticed, then you're not driving by enough, because it has been beautified, it has been improved, and that's actually a picture of when they opened up the chapel again. It had been unusable, and now it's a great resource for our city, and a very historic and important piece of our history. So thank you for what you've done there at Beech Grove. I appreciate it, and the other employees at Beech Grove. Thank you. Our animal shelter. This is our new animal shelter director. Down in the bottom screen, the one not in the fire uniform. That is Katie Wolf. Katie had to, she was here earlier, but they had a challenge at the animal shelter today. So she apologized, but she had to leave. I want to state that our live release rate is 97.75. So nearly every animal that starts at the shelter, 97.75 are moved to another home or some other facility. And those are great numbers. You only have to be 90 to be a no-kill shelter. And we're a no-kill shelter, but we are exceeding that, and she's done a wonderful job. And again, more collaboration. And you're really seeing our departments are working together. When we came up with a need, we did our staff meeting. I believe that's where it started. We had a staff meeting, and she just stated, hey, if anybody has a vehicle that they don't need any longer, and we had just purchased a couple new fire vehicles, and so we were able to move that over to the animal shelter because they had a need. And I know, I think Troy and Beech Grove went out and striped their parking lot as well. So we've just had a lot of collaboration, but we're very proud of what's happening there. Prairie Creek Reservoir. Yes, I am an Iron Man. I don't intend to, but I don't intend to ever do a 1.2-mile swim ever again. So it's off my bucket list. But I do love running, and I do love biking. And I will tell you, I'm so proud of Prairie Creek with all the improvements there. Do you know, and I don't know how many of you know this, but in 2000, every year, Ironman reviews the participants, does a survey. And Muncie, Prairie Creek Reservoir, the Muncie event, the Ironman Muncie 70.3, was rated as the #1 participant experience of every Ironman event in North America. #1. So in addition to $1.8 million worth of economic impact, because every hotel and restaurant was packed, it is a positive, it's a resource for us. We had intended to show a video today. We had some sound issues, but it's a great event for us, and it's now expanded. Not with Ironman, but it's expanded to other events are now coming to our facility because #1, not the biggest, not the most famous, but the best participant experience, because it's a closed course, it's a great reservoir, and everything is in that area, and they really appreciate it. So I'm just really proud of Dustin and his team and what they've done. Some of the things that they've also done is we now have, I don't know how many tons of sand?
7.3 million.
7.3 million?
730,000 tons of sand been brought in over
Okay.
the last 2 years.
So over the last 2 years, we've brought in 730,000 tons of sand. If you haven't been on that beach, you need to be. And guess what? Starting in 2023, you know how much it costs to go to that beach? Zero. It's a free beach. But we are also, and you can see some of these on there, we are also at 1/3 of the docks as of this year will be a new floating structure, which will, what it does is instead of all along the bank, you've got all these boats. The boats will go out, the structures will go out, and they're floating, easier for us to maintain. But what that does is it makes all that bank space available for more bank fishing and more visible, more beautiful nature views. And so we're doing this in segments because that's how we do, because we talked about borrowing, we're not borrowing. So we're doing it in segments, so it's a phase thing, but this is 1/3 of them will be these new floating docks going forward. And we are working on, it's not finished yet, I will wait till the next State of the City. So, well, we're looking at a education center as well at that particular site. Carl, is Carl? Oh, he's way back in the back. Carl Malone at Parks Department. I'll tell you what, we focused a lot. Thank you, Carl. Let's give him a round of applause. We focus very heavily on our parks. And I said in the first one, we're going to do 4 splash pads. We've got 2 done. One's 80% done. And then the 4th one will be at Thomas Park, and that'll be this year. And that'll be 4 splash pads in our city. I don't want anybody, I love Daleville, but I don't want anybody driving to Daleville to go to a splash pad. So we're going to have 4 in the city limits. But in addition to that, you can see there was a great collaboration with our deputy mayor, the Parks Department, Ball State University, the Cal Ripken Jr. Foundation, Gamebridge Corporation, and others to do a $1.5 million-ish upgrade to what was Lafferty Field. And it's gorgeous. We've done a lot of plantings. Till Pond is coming. We're waiting for the feds to say, yes, you got the grant. We have our money put aside because what do? We build our cash so that we're positioned to do these things. And then the memory spiral. I don't know how many of you saw the article in the paper, and it's online, what the Ziegler Foundation is doing at Heacon Park. It's going to be magnificent. And the edit funds paid a portion of that, 8 or 9% of the, but the rest of it's all from foundations. Collaboration is the key. But that's just going to, if you haven't seen it, it's online right now at the Star Press. Please take a look at it. And the other thing with the Parks Department, Carl and I, in the beginning, we were both so excited to start January 1st because we knew what we wanted to do long term. We wanted to upgrade the playground equipment. And so we immediately, now the first year's budget was already done, so we had to stick with that. But we immediately upgraded park playground equipment, a dollar figure, and the council approved it to go to $100,000 every year. That may not seem like much, but it was $1,900 in previous years. So we're putting in new playground equipment. But we also said we wanted to get programming back in our parks, and we have done that now. And so thank you for the Parks Department and everything that they're doing along those lines. I haven't been watching time, but I kind of feel like I'm going over. Infrastructure. So I'm going to remind people again, we couldn't do anything in 2020 because we had to do what? Pay back $1.9 million. So, but here's what we did in '22. we installed 226 ADA accessible curbs. It was over $1 million. 226 accessible curbs. We paved 68 roads. Most of the time, the city had been paving between 20 and 25 roads. We paved 68 last year. We also started a new, reinstated our concrete crew. So now we're out doing concrete work, sidewalks on our own, with our own employees, which is a savings, but also they're happy and they're making a difference and they can see what they're doing. And then we also bought our own milling equipment and our own paver. And we started working on that last year, and coming up here in 2023, you're gonna see 3 miles, in addition to the work that we're doing through contractors, but 3 miles will be paved in neighborhood streets from our own paving crew. That has not been ever done in the city of Muncie. And that's important because we know that we can't catch it up by doing what you've always done. You have to do something different. So that's why we spent the funds to buy what's necessary so that we can make a long-term strategic decision to improve things. So we've got, but let me show you, I will admit that we were 52.8 was our rating. That's not good in 2020. After 2022, we're up to 61. That's not good, but it's better, and it's marked improvement. And remember, the state says if your city rating is around 75, that's considered excellent. So I'm not going to say when this is going to happen, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there. And we're doing it by not doing what we've always done. So we're doing what we can with our own team, and they're excited about that. And we also are hiring contractors. Contractors will be doing Hoyt, Meeker, Burlington, Riverside, University, Purdue, and many more streets. The neighborhood streets we're going to be doing with our own crew. And so, Adam, I greatly appreciate what you and Donnie from the street department have been doing at Public Works. So thank you so much. Now, this one's really close to my heart. This was something, and there's a strategy behind it, which I'm not going to go into today, but if you go back and you look, in 2011, there were 53 building permits in the city of Muncie, 43 single-family homes and 10 apartment units. In 2015, 3. In 2019, I can't read it, 21. In 2022, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, 177 building permits were issued. So you're going to see a lot of construction inside the city limits. Most of those single family. And the 6 are, I had talked about earlier, which is, 105 East Washington, those apartments downtown. Everything else is listed as single family. So we're very proud of the fact that there's housing coming back to our city and new housing. And we're very proud of that. And it's a mixture of affordable, workforce, and market. And that's the big part. That's the key, because we need those revenues. So what comes next? First of all, I've talked a couple of times, and the reality is what you have in me as your mayor is someone who does look at things strategically, intentionally, and I have turned around offices. I've turned around regions. That's what I've done. I was often sent to fix a particular office. So I don't shy away from the problems, and we talked about 3 major problems when we took office in January of 2020. But everything is strategic and intentional. And it's to build the long-term future of this city because, as was mentioned in my introduction, I have 4 grandkids. 2 of them live here in town. I have to make sure that our city is in a better place after I leave than when I came. And that's what my goal is. So one of the major things that I've done is I have purposely, intentionally, and strategically kept various economic development opportunities outside of TIF districts. The reason I'm doing that is the only way you build your general fund so that it can be self-supporting is to not have it in a TIF district. Now, I'm not going to go into the details, but if it goes into a TIF district, that is great for the Muncie Redevelopment Commission because all the money goes to them. That is not good for paying police, fire, and employees and providing the services that the citizens need. So we have intentionally taken opportunities and put them not in a TIF district and not borrowed against them. Well, let me just show you. I'll just show you. After I click a second time. Every single one of these we have purposely kept out of TIF district funding. And there's many more, but that's $46,830,000 worth of economic development that will benefit our general fund and will benefit our school system because we are partners. The growth of Muncie is dependent on the growth of Muncie schools. The growth of Muncie schools is dependent on the growth of Muncie. We are partners. And I feel the same way about Ball State. We've got to improve in order for Ball State to have the opportunities that they need. And when Ball State raises up, that helps us. When we raise up, that helps Ball State. That helps the schools. So we're all partners in this. And this has all been strategic, but that's one of the things that we've done. I will tell you, I went and testified in front of the House Ways and Means Committee on behalf of mayors a couple of weeks ago on an issue that I hope is going to be okay. It will negatively impact us a little bit or a lot bit. But afterwards, one of the state representatives took me aside and said, let me show you what the projections are. It's not going to be as bad as you think. Well, here's what he showed me. He said, the state is forecasting that the revenue for the city of Muncie will be up $1.6 million in 2024. That's because of this. It was intentional. The legislature is looking at adjusting how some of that funding comes in to where he says, but you'll only get $600,000 if this passes. And I said, that's not right. I intentionally did this so that those funds would come to us. We need that money. I've got 3 union contracts to negotiate in 23. But anyway, that's why I was speaking. But he said the revenue is going to be up $1.6 million. That's because of these actions by your mayor. Now, these little dots are all the new jobs that are coming into the Delaware County and the Muncie area. But look at that. They seem to have spouses and or partners. And, maybe they have kids and children. What we're finding is that the average job where we can get somebody to move here or we retain a person to stay here has 2.75 in their household. This is important. Growth is important because it's how we pay for services. I don't want to raise taxes. I want to increase the tax base. We were talking at our table this morning about how the tax base was so much bigger when all those big factories were in town. And it was. So we've got to be creative. So one of the things that we're doing is remote workers. And we have been one of the leaders in the state, very early adopter, which people can't say about me in technology generally. But we were a very early adopter because I could see that if I could get people to move here, it's 2.75 people on average that move here. And let me just give you some numbers. Through 2022, we had recruited 30 people who moved here from the East Coast or the West Coast. They moved to Muncie. Moved to Muncie. They picked Muncie as their home. And 2.75 is the average size of those families. Just so you know, the average income of those families is $91,874, which means the average tax that we're now going to get, what the taxes were going to California or Pennsylvania or Illinois, because a lot of people have moved from Chicago. Those taxes on that night, they're not changing jobs. They're keeping their jobs. but they're moving to live here, to live among you in this great community. Those taxes are now coming to us, and it's about 32% of our revenue comes from the income tax. So if I can increase the number of people moving here, I can increase the tax revenue so that we can operate. And you know how much it costs each of you to do that? Zero. Because it's all taxes coming to us that we're being paid to other communities. That's why this remote worker program is so important. And we have 6 more this year that are now looking for housing. So it's going to continue, and I committed a lot of mayor's edit funds to continue this, because people moving here is a good thing, and it raises our income without raising any of your taxes. It gives more people the opportunity to help us pay for things. In fact, they say for those first 30 people, the economic impact for the first year was $1.6 million. So that's also positive, because you have that kind of economic impact. That means they're buying services, they're picking insurance agents, they're picking hair salons, they're picking all these other services that are positively impacted. And we're excited about that. So I think we had several challenges. We had financial challenges, we had infrastructure challenges, we have public safety challenges, and I feel like we've done wonderful things on those. In fact, I can say with full confidence that there is no way that we are better off today in 2022 financially than in 2019. And there is zero doubt in my mind. I can say with full confidence that we are better off with public safety than we were in 2019. I can say with 100% confidence that we have more housing options available for our residents to both retain residents and to add new residents than we did in 2019. I can say with full confidence that we are moving in a positive direction, and we continue, and we have something special going on. I want to just, and part of it is my style. I'm a little intense at the office. Would that be? Okay. So there's a lot of heads shaking because it matters to me. It matters to me. So I can be a little intense, but I try not to get into their business. So I've hired department heads that are exceptional in my mind. They're exceptional. But here's the other thing. I don't go making promises. I don't say, do this and I didn't make a bunch of promises. And I'm just going to show you this. We had 12 department heads. 4 of them that were hired were people I had never met before. I am not your typical politician. And that's one of the things that's helping this city. So we put people in play in all these departments. I cannot imagine being the HR director, Micah, of over 500 people with 3 unions and having to deal with that. But she does a great job. It just goes on and on and on. Community development puts millions of dollars back into our community, primarily through non-for-profits. And I so appreciate what Gretchen does. Bob Jesse and Steve Selvey and others in the Department of the Building Commissioner are working to try and make things happen without having to be viewed as a city that's not receptive to business. And there are many that are, believe me. When I'm doing economic development, that's one of their main concerns is, are we one that is helpful, encouraging, or are we not? And we try and be helpful and encouraging. Doesn't mean we do everything they want. In fact, we seldom do everything they want. But we've got great people running our departments. I've already mentioned Beech Grove Parks. I mentioned Michelle, who does our communications. I don't know how she can handle it, because we put out something that has to do with A, and it's the same 23 people. The same 23 people will mention B or C, and it doesn't have anything to do with A, which was super positive. But she does a great job, handling the communications and the Facebook posts. So I'm thankful for you as well. So I guess as we get to the end here, the state of the city, you know, I am pleased to report that the state of the city of Muncie, Indiana is strong and has great momentum, powerful momentum. And that will continue as long as we continue to make strategic, intentional decisions that think not short term, but think long term and leave a destiny and leave a legacy. And I am 100% positive that we have a strong state of the city. It's what I've been doing, and it's what I will continue to do, is to hire the right people, make decisions that are long-term, and help our city in a positive way. My name is Dan Ridenour. I am your mayor, and I am thankful that you allowed me to serve you. Thank you. Thank you.